Trump's rhetoric has shifted slightly but noticeably in recent days. Something has changed, and I'm going to show you what that is. If you think it's nothing, it might be, but it might also be something. And I'm not saying, I didn't title this to say Trump is turning on Putin. I'm not saying that, but there is, you can see the shifting if you know what to look for. I'm going to show you. Okay, so let's start with this. Now, Zelensky talked to Trump after Putin talked to Trump the other day, and after Putin's conversation, they bombed with one of the biggest bombings of the war up to that point. And then Zelensky had a conversation, and Zelensky came away saying the conversation with Trump was probably the best of all time. Wow. Okay. So what's going on there? And then Ukrainian President Zelensky hailed new agreements. There are new agreements now. This is in Radio Free Liberty, Radio Free Europe. New agreements with allies that he said would provide hundreds of thousands of new drones to the fight against Russia. And that included with the United States. And I'll get to that in just a moment. Now, you want to be careful and discount things that are over the top. Big news. Donald Trump confirms that Ukraine will receive an additional Patriot air defense system. And well, no. He's saying he's looking into it. So be careful and judge him by his actions, not by just his words. Like you can say, okay, he said this. Is he actually going to do? Here he's saying this. This was on the 4th. Today is the 6th. Ukraine will need Patriots for its defense. I don't want to see people dying. These systems are incredibly effective. They shot down 14 out of 14 missiles, referring to the incident in Qatar, where Iranian ballistic missiles were intercepted. We may send them. We're going to look into it, said the U.S. president. Okay, we're going to look into it. That's not the same as saying this is confirmed. So don't go over the top. But let's look at this. Ukraine signed this new weapons co-production deal with Denmark and reached a U.S. agreement for hundreds of thousands of drones, including interceptors, starting this year. We're scaling up production, training, and deployment. Interceptors are the priority, and that's a direct result of the conversation with Trump just the other day. So here it is again in Radio Free Liberty, Radio Free Europe. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky hailed the new agreements with allies he said would provide hundreds of thousands of new drones for the fight against Russia, while U.S. President Donald Trump hinted at possible additional sanctions against Moscow. Again, he's been hinting at that for way too freaking long, right? And it continues to reject the ceasefire push as Moscow continues to reject that. In his nightly video address, Zelensky on July 5th said separate agreements with the U.S. firm and European allies, including Denmark and Sweden, would give Ukraine the ability to hit important targets in Russia. So Zelensky seems to be happy about that. Now, I went and I was looking at this and I said, okay, let's try to understand what's going on. Let's just try to understand what Trump has said over time. So we're looking at the top 10 most condemning things that Trump has said about Putin listed in chronological order. There's not a lot. You have to go back to 2015 and 2016 to find something. And even then, this was kind of tepid. 2015, Trump called Putin a killer, but then softened the criticism by adding, our country does plenty of killing also. Okay, that's a moral equivalence. And that was in 2015 before he was that was very early on. Okay, Trump in 2016 said of Putin, he was very nice to me, but that doesn't mean he'll be as nice as president, hinting that he didn't trust Putin fully. That was in 2016, 2017, 2022. Okay, now we come to 2025. This is now his second presidency. And Trump 2.0 is different than Trump 1.0 in many ways, and it's pretty noticeable. Trump 1.0 was fairly conservative leaning, even though he was a populist, and he's leaned away from that into populism in 2.0. Okay, at any rate, January 2025, Trump threatened sanctions and tariffs on Russia unless Putin agreed to end the war in Ukraine, but that wasn't much. May, Trump said, I've known him a long time, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all. But that was like the first time you're hearing in May when he says, yeah, I don't like it. Like, okay, that's a change in rhetoric, but it's not a deep change. Okay, the next day, it was Trump called Putin absolutely crazy after a wave of Russian missile attacks on Ukrainian cities. Okay, so that's a change. from, hey, I have this great relationship with him. We can do business, that kind of thing. Okay. Then May 27th, Trump warned Putin is playing with fire. Same, like 3 days back to back to back, talking about that change. But that's not quite the same shift as you saw in late June and then early July. Trump and said that Putin just wants to keep killing people, which he's exasperated about this, like he's not able to come to any kind of deal. And then just recently, Trump expressed being very unhappy with Putin after Putin showed no willingness to cease hostilities during the phone call. Again, I got to the other side of the phone call. I'm very unhappy. He's not going to stop. That sort of rhetoric, right? So we see this shift, and you can see, like, I'll show you the pattern in just a moment. But meanwhile, Kremlin state propaganda is saying the truth in their domestic audience, or to their domestic audience, saying, like, the U.S. is our enemy. Like, they don't say that, like Lavrov doesn't say that for U.S. consumption, but they're saying that on Russian state TV regularly. Okay, so Trump was also saying this: I don't know if I can find a way to end the war in Ukraine. Now, that's a big shift as well. President Trump publicly cast doubt on his previous campaign promise to end the war in 24 hours, speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One on Friday. Today is Sunday, so that was 2 days ago. I don't know. I can't tell you whether it's going to happen or not. The statement sharply contrasts what he was saying during the campaign, but he's now changing his tune some, and it's really interesting to see. So if you look at his tone over time, and you just say there's like 3 distinct periods, 2015 to 2021, he's warm, he's praising, called Putin a strong leader, brushed off any critiques of him, like, you know, he was, we got to get along, right? We need to make deals and get along. Then you see in 2023 to early 2025, there's a little bit of reservation, but it's always like, we can make a deal. I have this great relationship with him. He backtracked on the 24-hour peace promise immediately after passing 24 hours. And I was saying, we'll get a deal done in time. But he started criticizing bombings, like he just keeps going. Like, what's he doing? And then in late 2025, June and July, it became somewhat confrontational. It's changed a little bit. I'm not saying that he's turned on Putin. I am saying the rhetoric is shifting slightly, ever so slightly, moving some more. Calls Putin crazy, says he's unhappy, blames him for civilian deaths. We weren't seeing that kind of rhetoric before. So this is important. Now, as a metaphor of what's going on, we could be misreading this, or maybe it's actually a shift. Like, here's misreading. Intel posted this, or Astria Intel posted this. If you ever felt stupid, just remind yourself that 250,000 people clicked on this video. This video is from History Legends, which is a pro-Ukraine site, very similar to what Denis Davidov or reporting from Ukraine does, but from the Russian perspective, trying to show how glorious Mother Russia is in their attacks on Ukraine. And his reply was, from History Legend, was, "Thank you for the free promotion." I don't know if he's sarcastic or if he actually thinks that this is a good thing that's being said. Now, with that, I also want to say this. If Trump's rhetoric has turned, if Trump does turn, I think that a lot of, and this is me, just my commentary, okay? So I can't prove this, but I'm going to show you what I mean. I think that a lot of MAGA goes with Trump where Trump goes. And I know you're saying, well, no, but MAGA's isolationist. I get it. They keep talking about isolationism. But in June of 2022, or June 22nd of 2025, we saw this from the Reagan Institute survey. And that is that about the Iran bombings, the survey showed a sharp 24% increase since 2022 in Americans who believe that the United States should be more engaged and take the lead in international events, including majorities of Republicans, 69%, and self-identified MAGA Republicans, 73%. At the top of the geopolitical concerns is Iran, with a supermajority of Americans, 84%, who want to prevent Islamic Republic from obtaining nuclear weapons. How many? 73% of MAGA went right along with Trump on bombing Iranian nuclear sites, because they're not ideologically driven as much as Trump driven, which is kind of bad in and of itself, in the sense that, like, following the one person and whatever he says, if he says this, we go that way. If he says this, we go that way. That's not the issue. They'll turn. So if Trump actually does shift in his rhetoric significantly and becomes more confrontational, I believe that you'll see MAGA go with him. I'll leave you with this final illustration to show you what I'm talking about. These ducks are at the end of a dam, and when one goes over, the others, well, you'll see what happens to them. The mother duck and her little ducklings. They're, one goes over there, he's going over the edge. There he is. And now the mother duckling is looking at it. And so what's going to happen? So again, I think this is a metaphor for where Republicans will go if Trump goes that direction, if he becomes more confrontational with Putin over time. If he decides to jump, there will go all the other Republicans with him. And that would be very, very good for Ukraine if he goes and supports Ukraine and turns the rhetoric. You just keep watching the rhetoric with Putin. Again, it's changed. I'm not saying that it's changed to the point that it's going to actually shift something, but given enough time, it could. Tell me what you think about this. Put it in the comments below. I'm not saying that Trump is there. I wish he was. I'm not saying that. I am saying something has shifted. Tell me what you think in the comments. Thank you for the time, the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.